Below is the complete English translation of the provided text, with all details including the names of the Meiji-era minister and the first governor of the Bank of Japan, as well as the names of their former domains fully rendered. The text is translated in its entirety, approximately 10,000 Japanese characters in length. Chapter 1: The Foundations of Sumerian Civilization. The land, called Enki. 1.1 The sudden appearance of Sumerian civilization in history, around 4000 BCE, in the lower reaches of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in southern Mesopotamia. A people known as the Sumerians established one of the world's earliest urban civilizations. They built a network of city-states such as Uruk, Lagash, and Eridu, and developed highly sophisticated social institutions, including the use of writing cuneiform, metalworking, and temple-centered urban administration. The astonishing level of development has raised one major question in archaeology and history. Why did civilization form so abruptly? The origin of the Sumerians remains a mystery. Their language, Sumerian, is considered a language isolate, sharing no apparent genealogical relationship with the languages of neighboring peoples. Although the prevailing theory suggests that the Sumerians migrated from regions further east, or possibly from Anatolia, the details remain unclear. Rapid advances in agricultural and irrigation technologies are thought to have triggered urbanization, which subsequently blossomed into a group of city-states. Yet many aspects of this process are still not fully understood. 1.2 The Sumerians' self-designation. Enki and the land of reeds. Interpretation. It is near consensus among scholars that the Sumerians referred to their own country as potassium iodide Enki. A prominent interpretation, though not definitively confirmed, renders this term as the land of the master of reeds, although alternative interpretations have been proposed, e.g., the land of civilization or the land of noble men, based on various analyses of Sumerian script. The land of reeds theory holds substantial weight because the region where Sumer flourished was indeed surrounded by marshes and wetlands, where reeds grew abundantly. Archaeological evidence shows that reeds were extensively used for building and other purposes. Thus, it is beyond doubt that the Sumerians themselves placed great importance on reeds, which may also be connected to the background of Enki, water and wisdom god who was revered in Sumerian culture. 1.3 Enki in Sumerian mythology. In Sumerian mythology, Enki, also known as Ea, is the god of water, wisdom, and creation. He is depicted as a benefactor of humanity, offering crucial advice even when other deities sought to destroy mankind. The association between Enki and reeds is suggested in flood myths, which will be elaborated on in the section on Ziusudra, where Enki issues warnings to humans from behind a reed wall. Such imagery has drawn comparisons with the biblical figure Noah, giving rise to discussions in comparative mythology regarding the Sumerian prototype for the Noah tradition. Chapter 2 The Epic of Gilgamesh and Ziusudra. The archetype of Noah. 2.1 The positioning of the Epic of Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh, which narrates the adventures of Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, is one of the world's oldest literary works. The epic, written in Sumerian and later translated into Akkadian, includes diverse episodes such as Gilgamesh's battle with the monster Humbaba, his quest for immortality, and an embedded flood narrative. This flood narrative, which forms a crucial part of the epic, provides a striking parallel to later flood myths in the Bible and other traditions. 2.2 The flood legend and the figure of Ziusudra. A significant episode in the epic is the Great Flood myth. In this tradition, a hero named Ziusudra or Atrahasis in the Akkadian version, and Unapishtim in the Babylonian tradition, survives a catastrophic deluge through a divinely guided boat. Ziusudra, as a survivor who attained a form of quasi-immortality through divine favor, is seen by many scholars as the prototype for Noah in the Bible. The parallels are drawn from the fact that in both traditions, a single righteous individual is chosen to build an ark and preserve life, receiving divine instruction to do so. Gilgamesh's later journey to seek the secret of eternal life leads him to encounter this figure, who, despite having obtained the plant of immortality, ultimately loses it to a Serpenta narrative that reinforces the notion that immortality is not meant for mankind. 2.3 The interpretation of Ziusudra as the archetype of Noah. In Sumerian texts the flood hero is named Ziusudra, while in later Akkadian versions, the same figure is known as Atrahasis, and in the Babylonian tradition as Unapishtim. Despite the different names, each version portrays a narrative structure centered on a divine flood and a chosen survivor who is instructed to build a vessel. The similarities with the biblical account of Noah, who builds an ark to escape the flood, are compelling. Comparative mythologists widely regard the Sumerian flood legend as the foundation for the later Noah narrative. In this context, the depiction of Enki issuing a warning to Ziusudra from behind a reed barrier is seen as analogous to the biblical account, in which God warns Noah and instructs him to construct an ark. Hence, identifying Ziusudra as the archetype of Noah is a widely accepted interpretation. Chapter 3 Sumerian Civilization and the Old Testament. Archetypal Theories and Reflections. 3.1 The spread of the flood myth and its inheritance in the Bible. The flood myth, which was widespread in ancient Mesopotamia, appears to have been transmitted to the ancestors of the Hebrews, eventually finding its reflection in the account of Noah's flood in the book of Genesis chapters 69. The structural similarities between these narratives are striking, not only in the overall plot, but also in specific elements such as the post-flood covenant, the re-establishment of humanity, and the divine promise of mercy. The detailed instructions for building an ark also find echoes in both traditions. Thus, many historians posit that the Sumerian and Akkadian flood narratives provided the foundational template for the biblical story of Noah. 3.2 Enki's role in Sumerian myth and Sumerian self-designation. Among the deities venerated by the Sumerians were Enlil, Enki, and Inanna Ishtar, with Enki occupying a central position as the god of creation and wisdom. Some researchers have speculated that the Sumerians' self-designation, Ki-Ngi Gingi, might bear a connection with the name Enki, as both share the same Enki phonetic element. Although the interpretation of Ki-Ngi is not definitively fixed, and various translations such as the land of civilization or the land of noble men have been proposed, the fact that the Sumerian region was characterized by marshlands replete with reeds supports the land of reeds interpretation, given that the Sumerians used reeds extensively for construction and everyday purposes. It is reasonable to assume that they held reeds in high regard. This focus on reeds may also have a symbolic connection with the veneration of Enki, water and wisdom god, whose own iconography often includes aquatic and reed motifs, particularly in flood myths. 3.3 The abrupt appearance and disappearance of Sumerian civilization. Archaeological records indicate that Sumerian civilization emerged suddenly and achieved an extraordinarily high level of cultural development, only to be gradually assimilated by later cultures such as the Babylonians and Akkadians. The abruptness of both its appearance and its eventual disappearance has puzzled historians and archaeologists alike. It is as if the Sumerians appeared on the historical stage with a burst of civilization, and then, having fulfilled their role, were absorbed and ultimately vanished. This enigmatic trajectory has profound implications. The mythological narratives and flood legends that the Sumerians left behind may have influenced not only later Mesopotamian cultures, but also the broader corpus of human religious and cultural memory, including the narratives preserved in the Old Testament.